Good morning. We are live on the Falcons Podcast on YouTube. Welcome in. We want to bring in our Facebook groups real quick as well. So we are live on Facebook and YouTube. And once those come in, we'll get started today. Shouldn't take long. Welcome in, everybody. This is the Falcons Podcast. We are live on Wednesday morning, just after 9 o'clock on a gorgeous, just about to be spring day here in the Southeast. I'm in Atlanta. My name is Scott Kennedy. Over here on this side, that's Nick Kendell. He's in Seattle. So we're coast to coast here with your football talk this morning. Nick, how you doing this morning, my friend?
I'm doing pretty well. I cannot complain too much. Just enjoying the nice little false spring that we just had out here in Seattle. It was beautiful, 50 to 65 degrees stretch there. And here in the Pacific Northwest, we have a similar climate to Japan. And Japan gets all the credit for the cherry blossoms, but we have a crazy cherry blossom bloom going right now. So just like really beautiful pink, white, fluffy-ish clouds in every single street corner. I mean, it's a good time to be outside. I'm enjoying it. It's getting me excited for summertime.
This is your pink, white, fluffy podcast.
We love it.
Our cherry blossoms are actually falling off because they bloomed a couple of weeks ago.
Okay. Yep.
So that's where we are. And then all the leaves fall off in July. It's the weirdest tree. So on that note, welcome in, everybody. We're going to talk some mock draft today. We'll talk a little bit of rumors too. I know there's some discussion in the chat about Haason Reddick. We'll touch on that just a little bit. But two of the bigger names in this industry, and maybe two of the biggest right now, in Mel Kiper Jr. and Daniel Jeremiah on NFL.com, both dropped mock drafts this week. They had a familiar feel to them, Nick. They didn't really go all out on that. We'll maybe spice it up a little bit when we do a mock draft here, because there was a trade in Daniel Jeremiah's. There was not one with Mel Kiper, and I think the Falcons might be interested in a trade. And there might be some teams that are willing to trade up. So we'll see. We might play around with that just a little bit today. But we go live on these channels Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, because we like having a conversation with y'all. So there's folks in here. As soon as I built the stream, they've been in here for over 30 minutes chatting with each other. So we want to say hello to some folks. Like my Swankery comes in. He says, what if Dallas Turner has gone early? Do you think if that happens, you trade down move would make sense then? For me, Nick, not necessarily. I think you may just turn to, depending on where you have Jared Verse, you may have Jared Verse over Dallas Turner. You may go Terrion Arnold at cornerback. You could go, if Dallas Turner falls, maybe Joe Alt falls, big offensive tackle, and you've got your Caleb McGarry / Jake Matthews replacement for the next 10 years. If Dallas Turner goes up, maybe Malik Neighbors comes down or somebody like that. It means someone has to fall. So it might take edge off. It might. But you could also move down a bit like you're talking about. You might take Jared Verse. Latu, a couple picks later would make sense too, Nick.
Yeah, I think that it would really, if Dallas Turner is gone, that very much means that one of the top 3 wide receivers is going to be there, as well as one of Joe Alt, maybe a quarterback as well is still available. Maybe we got kind of, the ring around with J.J. McCarthy, or maybe the Drake May fall is real, or maybe Jaden Daniels isn't as beloved as. So there's going to be somebody available that I would assume somebody would want to move up for. Right now, I think there are 8 guys, and Dallas Turner isn't included in that 8, that are no doubt top 10 picks in my mind. So there should be somebody available there for trade. Maybe you just end up taking that guy in the end. I mean, you've made moves for wide receiver, but the way these guys are getting paid, if you could bring in another dynamic player, I'm not against it. You need edge and cornerback, but just in the end, if you view a guy as like a potential Hall of Fame grade or All-Pro, then especially at a value position, then don't overthink it, in my opinion. But I think also you're very much in the cornerback conversation there. Dallas Turner, I wish he had tested not Dallas Turner. Terrion Arnold, I wish he would have tested a little bit better, but the tape is awesome. And then you got Kenyon Mitchell, who's just elevated himself every single step along the way, answered questions emphatically. So those are guys that are definitely options as well.
So we talked about it. I wrote it up yesterday on allfalcons.com, just the options the Falcons have. There are good options, including the way the offense is set up, the way the draft is setting up. The Falcons have a lot of good options. We're not used to getting our hopes up in Atlanta. It's the hope that kills. But you know what? You should be hopeful for a big improvement over the last 6-7 years of doldrums. John Brooks coming in. Good to see you, John. He says, yesterday there was a rumor saying we could get a trade done for Haason Reddick, but the Falcons would need to create cap space and make the trade happen. But unfortunately, the trade never happened. Now, I saw some people who I trust pick up on this, but the first source I saw post it isn't someone I would necessarily consider a source. It doesn't mean it's not happening or, they're not trying to do something like that, because it does make sense. Prying him away from Philadelphia would be tough for sure. And Hassan Reddick right now, he's sitting on a $22 million cap hit with a $20.5 million dead cap, but his base salary is 14. So his dead cap wouldn't be that much if you traded him and someone took most of that money. His dead cap would come away from that because his signing bonus on that is just 3. So his dead cap wouldn't be that much in a trade. So would it make sense? Absolutely would it make sense. Could you get it done and pick up that $15 million? Yeah, you could. You could figure out a way to get that done. You'd create some new contracts for people, get some extensions done. There's all kinds of ways to do that. Now, does that take edge away at number 8, Nick, or would you go Batman and Robin there?
Pass rushers, pass catchers, cornerbacks, offensive line, defensive line, can never have enough. You just keep adding to those spots when you can, especially defensive line. That is one where if you want your second unit to look like some team's first unit, if you can help it, and just rotate and send waves. So if you bring in Reddick, I don't think, or Reddick, then there's no reason that you should take off edge off the board. Does it make it where you're in a situation where it opens up the board a little bit? Maybe you're not as desperate at the spot. Sure, I would hear that argument because you have a known quantity in there and a known quality, but it does not remove them by any means. Just makes it you're a little bit more comfortable going a different direction.
Yeah, I think right now you've got one edge for the most part, and that's Arnold Ebiketie, who I would love to see as a 3. So you got Hassan Reddick, there's your number 1. Dallas Turner, number 2. Arnold Ebiketie, number 3. All of a sudden, a weakness goes to a strength for this team. So it does make sense to me. And Victor, I highlighted your question because we rolled right into that conversation. And Mike Spanger says, what in your mind would be a perfect draft for the Falcons? Skill players. I did it. I was like, all right, edge, wide receiver, corner, safety. Right there. You get those 4 positions taken care of where you're upgrading / at least not going backwards in those 4 positions. Edge, you should be able to upgrade fairly easily, knock on wood. Cornerback might not be as easy to upgrade right away, but you need another corner. Safety should be a pretty easy position to upgrade. And then wide receiver, a wide receiver 2-3. If you can get one in the second round, you should get a wide receiver 2 out of this draft, Nick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that you can definitely get a good wide receiver in the second round. You can probably get another good one in the third round if you wanted as well. So keeping your options open. It's also really nice that you have 4 top 100 picks right now. So let's say there's somebody that you adore and you want to get yourself an additional top 50 pick as opposed to, 4 top 100 picks. You could probably package those 2 round 3 selections and get in there and get close to, 60, 55, 50 to get another player in there also. So a lot of options, a lot of direction you can go, and you can let the board fall to you as well. I mean, looking at the roster, cornerback and edge are the 2 that are most obvious concerns, but I don't think they are concerns to edge is actually, you need to get somebody else in there still, if not 2, but definitely 1. I mean, I'm saying like baseline for taking the field, you need another edge, but for the most part, you have a lot of flexibility still, and that's the place you want to be entering the draft.
Yeah, I think from a resources standpoint, the easiest of those positions to upgrade should be safety. But there's a glut of players at the position, veteran players at the position. They're not typically high draft picks, so you can get your choice of guys. I mean, think about it. The Falcons could basically get their choice of edge and safety in this draft. They could take the number 1 guy from each position in this draft in the first and second round if they wanted to. Now, I wouldn't want to go safety in the second round in this draft, not in this one. Just with the options you're going to have at wide receiver, offensive line. there's going to be too many good players. Michael Sunrise Rankio says, good morning, Scott and Nick on the Falcons podcast. Great to see you, Michael. I feel like we missed you one day this week. Must have been Monday because that was the only day me and Nick were here. We took Tuesday off, so I hope you're doing well and things are good. Good to see you again. Want to say hello To Edward Brown coming in with a super chat over there on YouTube, breaking the ice for us. And remember, the most direct way to support this channel and what Nick and I do are with super chats like Edward Brown did, or stars over on Facebook. And Edward says, just curious, has Justin Simmons paid any visits to any teams this offseason? And also, how much money would the Falcons clear up by cutting Grant? I haven't seen Justin Simmons as far as being linked specifically with any teams as far as coming in on any visits, Nick, and I don't know really what the holdup is for him.
His first time being a free agent, maybe he's taken his time, and I'm guessing that the market is not exactly what he was going for, otherwise he'd have signed by now. I mean, it's an assumption by me, but I think it makes sense given what we're waiting for still. So I don't know. I don't think
it's a money issue with him. I think it's just a fit issue with him. I mean, he's made a ton of money. So he's got to be going for I want to play on a championship contender, and maybe it's not materializing. Maybe PFF was right. People look at that PFF score and you see Justin Simmons, Pro Bowl, 42nd ranked wide receiver safety in the NFL. You know, are we starry-eyed over Justin Simmons? I saw him do some good things, and I think he's really good in coverage. That's why I think he would be a good fit for the Atlanta Falcons. He doesn't have to be a thumper going forward. He's not a box safety for me, Nick. He's really smooth in coverage, which is what the Falcons desperately need. Hell, the Colts could use Justin Simmons in a big way. They had the 5th most sacks and the 16th pass defense. How does that happen? You're weak on the back end, but he'd be a perfect fit. He'd be a perfect fit in Atlanta. Absolutely, in my opinion.
Yeah, from what I understand, there has been some financial stuff that he's looking for that hasn't materialized, and that might just be the market, how it is. I know there was talk about him with the Steelers, and then Russell Wilson went there, and that sounds like that kind of fell apart. There was talk with the Eagles, the Titans as well. So we'll see what happens with Justin Simmons. He is a player who is on the wrong side of 30 and playing a position that the NFL has shown to be not valued right now. And we can get into that a little bit more some point after the draft, going to what are the trends right now? What does it mean? But yeah, we'll see what happens with Simmons, and hoping nothing but the best for him because he is a hell of a person.
Yeah, he's one that Arthur Blank would absolutely love as far as, the community service, et cetera, et cetera. And that's why I think he's going to take more than half of a pay cut from what he was on. 18, I think, was going to be his cap charge for the Denver Broncos. His cap charge for this next team will be between 7 and 9, I think, at best for whoever he signs with. And he might not be in any hurry, kind of enjoying the process. And how much money can the Falcons clear up by cutting Grant? It's 3.1 and change. I call it 3.2, but I don't remember if it was 3.14 or 3.15 or more to round. But it's more than $3.1 million. $3.1 million will get you a good veteran safety in free agency, Nick.
Yeah, it should. I mean, there's still ones available too. So that's one reason also. No need to fast play it or anything. The market is still out there for a lot of these guys. So let the draft come, let the market kind of settle a little bit more, and maybe, these prices start to drop a bit and you can save $1-2 million here or there.
Chris Walker, good to see you, Chris. How are you doing? One of the OGs. He's been with us from the beginning. He says, morning, guys. Even though edge, cornerback, and wide receiver are needs, I think right tackle and center need upgrades and players who are really good at more than just run blocking. Yeah, PFF loves Drew Dahlman, but it comes down to his run blocking might be number 1, but it's really, really high. And then we know Caleb McGarry. Caleb McGarry was really good in 2022 and got, relative to his pro football, I keep saying PFF, everybody drink, but his PFF grade had him a top 5 tackle. He's not necessarily a top 5 rounded tackle, and he came in fairly cheap. I mean, he's $10-12 million on a second-year contract. The second year of his second contract, he's relatively cheap. And tackle is a sneaky need for this team. It absolutely is. And if they were to take Joe Alt at number 8, you could justify that. It's not necessarily a win now move unless you think Caleb McGarry is a big liability to this team, Nick, and you're looking to replace him right now.
Yeah, which we'll see if that happens. I think he is serviceable, but long-term, maybe a position to upgrade. And if the board falls a certain way, that's a direction you could go, of course. I also am curious what the future plans are with Matthew Bergeron, because he was guard and tackle at Syracuse. So maybe he has the ability to kick out to tackle in the end. I think he's a little bit more guard body type and skill set, but I mean, had some good tape there at Syracuse as well. So he got some options there still to add to the roster. But on the immediacy again, it does lean defense and edge, which you could just take the best guy on your board there at 8, or you could roll the dice and get that next tier of guys and get a lot more picks to give yourself some flexibility.
Jess Kennedy, good morning, Deacon, and Nick. Good morning to y'all. David, good to see you. Appreciate you crossing over and watching us this morning. And we got some Broncos fans in here. That's good. We'll talk plenty of draft. And yes, there's some discussion here about Jerry Jeudy's contract with the Cleveland Browns. That was kind of an eye popper. Was it $25 million on 2 years each, or was it 20? He got 40 plus guaranteed, like $46 million guaranteed. So it ends up being a 2-year, 23 per on a 3-year deal with, basically the club option. Hopefully y'all watch me enough to know how I feel about the contracts and the total number. And it ends up being a 2-year, like $48 million deal for Jerry Jeudy. Goodness gracious, Nick. We were talking Broncos for breakfast. That we were happy for someone just to take his 13 off the Broncos' hands. Wow.
Yeah, pretty incredible. Good for him. I probably wouldn't have paid him that. I think that's a little interesting. But we'll see if he lives up to that pick and contract. I do wonder also because he was already going to get a big contract this year anyway, right? What was it going to be? 15 million all guaranteed or something?
No, it was 13.
13?
His 5th-year option was 13.
I wonder if the new contract starts now and he was going to get that 13 million anyway. I wonder if it's just a little bit of window dressing and how the language of the contract was laid out. Because I don't think it's that 3-year that kicks in immediately in 2024. I could be mistaken though, but I think it starts now. So you're already on the hook for that 13. So maybe that makes it look a little less.
Yeah, Spotrac hasn't put it up yet. He's still just 25 years old. It was 13, and then it says 3-year, 41 guaranteed. So that's a 2-year, $20.5 million deal with a club option that, he won't see the 3rd year of that deal.
No.
And a cap tracker, if I look at the Cleveland Browns, it was like, did they have just monopoly money to play around with? No, they're last. They're last in available salary cap space, and that's before you add on his contract. Anyway, some talk about Jerry Jeudy coming to the Falcons. 20-something million dollars. I hate second contracts for not second contracts. I hate free agent contracts for receivers.
Mm-hmm.
What could you do with $20 million? Well, we know, and I'm not spending on Jerry Jeudy. No offense to Jerry Jeudy, but 25 for Calvin Ridley. God. Oh, more power to them. Good for them. Play a receiver. Who wants to play defensive back these days? They'll call you for pass interference and throw you out of the game for targeting. David Youngkin, we said good morning. Good morning, Jeremy Shaw. He says, morning, Bays. I think you were pretty safe in getting wide receiver 3 or edge 1. Yeah, I don't know about that, Jeremy. I think 3 wide receivers could be off, Nick, in the first 7 picks. Of course, that would mean if 4 quarterbacks go in the first, then it would have to be all wide receivers and quarterbacks in the first 7 picks. We are a 7-on-7 league, Nick.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is a 7-on-7 league, but you see the teams go far in the playoffs, and they are ones that have some semblance of beating people up on the offensive line and defensive line. So it is a space. It's trying to get the ball in space to your playmakers, but the ability to do so is very dependent on that first line holding up. I think that's one reason that the Lions have been so successful as well. Everybody talks about the speed, the playmakers they have, but there's never a week where their offensive line is so outmanned that you can't lean into a certain concept or pass game. It's a solidness that you have week by week in your scheme design because of that offensive line. So it is It is a space game. It's about getting the ball to playmakers in space, but in order to be afforded that opportunity, the first line has to hold up.
There's a phrase I first heard in baseball. The first time I heard it, I think I was 17 or 18 when John Sherholtz came to Atlanta to remake the Atlanta Braves, and it was one of the first things he did was get Otis Nixon. And he said, "Speed doesn't slump." That was the first time I heard that phrase. In football, strength doesn't slump. The trenches don't slump. It's consistent play. It's you can have an off day with the weather conditions or whatever in the passing game, drop a ball, it turns into a big play or whatever, but trenches don't slump. So yes, the teams that are going far in the playoffs usually have a quarterback, usually have pretty good trench play, both sides of the ball. John Norman. So what's up, Scott? First time catching you live. Well, great. Appreciate you being here. Thanks for checking us out. The channel has been growing because of people like you, and we certainly appreciate it. Oblivion Empire. Jason, he says, what's up, guys? Good morning to fans and great hosts. Thank you, sir. Red Swarm, good morning. Coffee. I'll drink to that. Scott and Nick and my friends in the chat, have a wonderful Wednesday, everyone. Eric Ortiz is in as well. John Harrell is here. Austin, this is a fairly common discussion. I actually put it in writing at All Falcons yesterday. That's how strongly I feel about it. He says, I think it's unlikely, but what if the Falcons drafted a quarterback at 8 so they can sit behind Kirk Cousins for 2 years until they are ready? I have a couple thoughts of this. One, my first thought on this is you don't put $100 million guaranteed into a 36-year-old quarterback and then draft a quarterback in the top 10. Nobody's doing that. Your window to win is now. When you're investing in a quarterback, you've got a 2-year window. We want to win as much as we can in these 2 years and then see what happens. You can pick up those option years if you want to on Kirk Cousins, or you can move on. Mm-hmm. We've got to win now. Who is the player at a premium position who can help us win now is the best fit? That's who the Atlanta Falcons will take. I don't see any way the Atlanta Falcons take a quarterback in the first round of this draft. If there is a quarterback available at 8, Terry's on the phone. Terry is on the phone trying to move down with the Vikings if they haven't already moved up, with the Broncos, with the Raiders, and Rams. He's trying to pick up more picks and move down just a few spots. I don't see any freaking way, no how the Atlanta Falcons take a quarterback at 8.
Yeah, very, very improbable. As far as 8, also, I think it's improbable that one of the top 4 quarterbacks is there. So are you taking Bo Nix at 8? No. Michael Penix at 8? No. And you're not trading up for a quarterback after what you did with Kirk Cousins. So it's about the here and now. It's about the 3-year window, as you mentioned, and just the opportunity. I don't think those guys are going to be there in the end for you to pick at 8. So not likely. Maybe we can talk day 2. I mean, you got a lot of day 2 picks. Let's say you need a backup out there. I mean, let's see what Heineke does contract-wise. I'm surprised that he's still here or is going to be kept around, it looks like, Scott. But Nix, Penix, Rattler, Milton, day 2. I mean, okay. Now we can talk maybe Milton. I think Milton probably more round 4 in my opinion, but that's another discussion. But 8, not happening.
Yeah, I don't see it, Austin. Now, if you take a quarterback later, okay, I have no problem with that. If you get Spencer Rattler in the 3rd with your second, 3rd round pick, one of your 2 3rd round picks, fine. If you take a 6th round pick on Joe Milton, okay. So those are and that's the other part of this question that I have is those are the kind of guys you pick and sit. You're taking guys in the top 10. I don't agree with the fact that this guy has to sit for a couple years when I'm taking him in the top 10. One, it doesn't happen anymore. The first 3 guys taken last year all played. Top picks on poor teams, they're playing their guys. That's how they're expecting to get better and figure out if they want to give them a second contract as they move on. It's like, what about Jordan Love? Jordan Love was sitting behind a back-to-back MVP. And if Jordan Love had been playing earlier, he would have been better earlier. Mm-hmm. Jordan Love isn't Jordan Love because he sat. Jordan Love's good. So, I don't agree with these guys must sit, or it's necessarily even better for them if I'm taking them high. Another PR from Puerto Rico, I believe. So morning, Scott. Long time silly season over. Let's go. I trust your judgment and draft more than the others. Well, we'll see. We'll see on this. Again, I'll miss all the time, but I'll tell you I'll miss. I try not to grade on hindsight. When I talk about how the Falcons have not really had that edge rusher available to them in the top 10 these last 3 drafts, what about Micah Parsons? Micah Parsons was an inside linebacker with the ability to move to edge. That's one of the reasons he fell to 11. In a hindsight draft, the lowest he goes is 2. The very lowest he goes is number 2. So, that other than that, who would you have taken in the top 10, Nick, as a pass rusher that made sense at the time. The closest guys that we talked about going in were was it not Van Ness, but the kid from Iowa.
It was Van
Went
Ness.
to the Packers. Was that Lucas Van Ness? Okay. And then George Karlaftis, who ended up falling to the back end of the first to the Kansas City Chiefs. It was too high for Odafe Oweh at the time for the Baltimore Ravens. There are edges in this draft at 8. Mm-hmm. You pass on an edge in this draft at 8, that's on you now. There's available edges.
And I think it's possible that I really do. I mean, you guys could probably package your round 2 pick and your round 3 pick to go up into the back end of the first and take a Chop Robinson or a Latu if they fall. There's risk to that given the positions they play. They might not make it out of the top 25, and then it'd be hard to get up there and get them. But definitely an area that you can be aggressive and go hunt depending on how the board falls. I mean, it could be where you move down from 8 and fall to, let's say, pick 15, and you can take an edge there or take a cornerback there. And with the extra resources you just got, move back up to go get Latu or Robinson. So again, you can move up and down the board, and I expect them right now just to sit at 8 and take Dallas Turner. But options available for sure.
Archangel says, morning, brethren. It's just in time to see Scott's nice, shiny forehead better than the sunrise. You see this sunrise over here? Shining right here, right off the forehead over here. Actually, I open my windows over here. I'm like, wait, that's too much light. I'm off balance here. That's okay. Y'all will get over it. It's just something I noticed that I'm brighter over here. Windows. I've got my windows open. I usually keep those closed, but my office is kind of dark. So I got lots of light on me. So keep the forehead nice and shiny. Speaking of keeping the forehead nice and shiny, Evan is keeping the lights on. Evan J on the super chat coming in. That helps keeps the lights on and helps keeps this sunrise over here. Keeps his forehead just popping. What are your thoughts on the tampering rumors? Think they're kind of BS when players sign 8 minutes after the deadline. Who do you like at wide receiver too? Evan J, I'm with that too. I mean, how do you say that the negotiation period, the contact period opens and the deals are announced literally across the league minutes after the contact period opens? You're dealing with the agents constantly. Now, I would imagine that's not against the rules. I mean, that's what agents do. I can talk to the agents and work out these deals. Agents are talking to the players. So the tampering that we saw that had some effects in it were the Miami Dolphins, and they had 3 strikes on them. They lost a first-round pick and were fined like $1.5 million, and their owner was suspended from attending games for 6 games. Those have teeth. Those are actual punishments. You know, maybe not the $1.5 million to a guy that's got a franchise worth $7 billion, but the first-round picks forfeiture that has teeth. They had 3 strikes to them. 1, it was tampering with Sean Payton and Tom Brady. That's 2. And number 3, it was also part of the Brian Flores racial discrimination lawsuit that went against them. I think we wrapped all those 3 things together, and the Dolphins got pushed for it. You've got Rich McKay. Thank you to our chat for reminding me of this on Monday. Rich McKay is on the competition committee, and he's the right-hand man for Arthur Blank. So we'll see, but I don't see too much coming from it. That said, there's an old joke from Auburn used to go on probation for like buying a steak dinner or giving a kid a ride. There's an old joke that, you know, what happens when the NCAA visits Alabama for possible NCAA infractions? Bear Bryant puts Auburn on probation. The Atlanta Falcons are kind of one of those bottom of the tier teams. So let's make an example of the Atlanta Falcons if you really want to be a conspiracy theorist, but I don't know. There doesn't seem to be too much to this, y'all.
I mean, if there is, it's probably going to be something pretty minor in the end, would be my opinion on that. It's pretty hard to prove that also. I mean, if you're talking with the agent, you're not really talking with Kirk, you know, a lot of rubbing the elbows before the season opens. And it's kind of, I don't know, making an example of them, I think it'd be pretty hollow because there's agents talking, we're talking hypotheticals, nothing in structure, but what would it look like? These guys talk. I don't think it's a big deal. I don't know really what you could do to slow it down either, especially with just how much exchange of information and talking goes on between agents and teams at the combine, at the Senior Bowl, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't think anything will come of it. come of it. If it is, it's probably something really small, like you're losing a round 6 draft pick, or one of your fifths is kicked to a 6th, or something like that.
Yeah, and using examples, Marquise Shaw Share says Mahomes sat, Steve Young sat, Aaron Rodgers sat. Seems to work out for those teams. Shake my head. Yeah, on a small enough sample size, I can prove any point you want to.
Mm-hmm.
They did sit. Is that why they were good? Or would Steve Young been a pretty good quarterback? Let's see. I don't know where the Chiefs were when Mahomes was drafted, but he ended up playing fairly early. And when Mahomes came in, there was, I don't remember, it was like their defensive back that was doing an interview was making fun of the pick at practice his first year. He's like, that's the quarterback? Are you joking? That's the guy you took in the first round because he looks so bad? Now, I'm not saying you throw him in there, but if you've got a guy who thinks you can play him. Steve Young sat. Who did Steve Young sit behind again? Let me think.
I don't know. Joe Cool?
Joe Montana? Oh, okay. Would Steve Young have been good if he had played earlier? Yeah. Aaron Rodgers. Who was Aaron Rodgers sitting behind again? Oh, that guy's got a gold jacket too. Would Aaron Rodgers have been good if he had played? They're good because they're good.
Mm-hmm.
If they're not any good, then don't play them. If they're good, put them in.
Yeah, I think a lot of times the quarterbacks not being good out of the gate and needing to be sat is more of an indictment on the coaching staff than it is the player themselves, because you should be able to, if they're talented enough, cobble something together where you can make a functional offense and let them make their mistakes, their warts early on, and grow from there. So I'm with you, Scott. It's kind of a chicken or egg discussion, but those are that sample spans what, 30 years there with those three guys.
40 now.
40 with Montana and Young. God bless. So I don't know if that's
carry the one. There's an extra decade now as I get older. But yeah, that was probably late 80s. So we're into 35 years for Steve Young.
Yeah, and Keith is right, I think. Didn't Steve Young sit behind, or wasn't he in Tampa Bay first, and then he came over to the 49ers? That's before I was born, so I couldn't tell you exactly. But I think that's actually true. I remember him in creamsicle uniforms, and he went to the 49ers and was good. I think that's true.
And again, some of these guys need a year because they're immature or they're, for one reason or another, they're not ready. Again, Brady attributed his success to sitting and not being thrown in right away. Tom Brady was a 6th-round draft pick. And he fell that way because he was considered not ready to play right away. But if they can play, they can play. This idea that we have to sit them, that's asinine. It's each case is different. You can't just take there's not one way to do this, y'all. You've got to take each case on an individual basis. If a guy can play and you have an opening, play him. Don't just throw a season away behind a guy who can't play when the quarterback who's better is behind him. Play him. Mm-hmm. There's no, we have to have this guy play. Talking about Roth Tiberius Kane, the Florida State quarterback, and UCLA quarterback, interesting too later. Okay, Roth, the UCLA quarterback, is a guy I would draft and want to sit a year because he's coming off an injury. Now, if he's tearing it up and the Falcons are 0-10 at the end of the season, I'm putting him in. I want him to get experience if he's ready. So again, there's no, I have to do this. There's no right way to do this. Draft him and sit him. Why? If he's not, if the individual basis says he's not ready, so be it. But I'm not making that decision in March. I'm not making that decision for my team in March. That's my point on this. Good question from Keith. He says, Scott, who makes the Hall of Fame first, Matt Ryan or Andrew Jones? Mine on this, Nick, you might not be in on this one. Andrew Jones should be in the Hall of Fame, period. People remember, it's kind of, I've used this example with Russell Wilson, Nick. People remember the big move in tanking. Andrew Jones got a big contract from the LA Dodgers and flamed out spectacularly. He had a Hall of Fame career before he went in. 10 straight gold gloves, 400-plus home runs. Every other person that has those numbers is in the Hall of Fame. Matt Ryan is borderline for me. Andrew Jones is one of the greatest center fielders of all time with over 400 home runs. He's a no-doubter, should be in the Hall of Fame. Matt Ryan is borderline. The answer should be Matt Ryan.
Yeah.
I said it backwards. The answer should be Andrew Jones.
I was going to say, I think the answer should be Andrew Jones. Matt Ryan was good, but he's not a Hall of Famer. Falcons Ring of Fame, whatever you guys got there, where you can honor somebody who's good for your individual franchise. Absolutely, sure. But not a Hall of Fame level quarterback, just the Hall of very good. And that's good career for him.
Well, and sometimes they do the numbers. I mean, he was knocking on the door of top 5 for all-time yards in the NFL. I mean, he's got the numbers. He's got a spectacular flame out, but his numbers in the Super Bowl were spectacular. And the 28-3, his numbers were very, very good in that game. You just didn't have Tom Brady's defense or his coaching staff. Andrew Norman coming with some stars on Facebook. Appreciate you, Andrew. He says, do you think Arthur is looking over a championship and then turning over ownership reins? I don't know what guys like. I haven't seen. My answer to that off the top of my head is the first part is yes, he wants to get a championship. But no, I don't think he would give up the ownership after winning a championship. I don't know if you do it. I mean, I hate to talk about this, but we're gonna. Because, Nick, you have some experience with this, with Pat Bolin, who passed away while still owner. He put it in trust for his family. I don't know Arthur Blank's. We don't hear much about the kids. I don't know that he has any. I would think he does, but I don't know much about his family. It's always Arthur Blank, and he hasn't gone the incestuous route of bringing in his kids to run the Falcons. So I don't know who they are. So I don't know the trust or how he would pass that along. When Father Time finally takes its toll on all of us. But the Denver Broncos, when Pat Bolin passed away, put it in a trust to his family, and then they just sold last year for, what was it, $5.5, almost $6 billion?
Yep. Yeah, I would not put a trust in place based on what we saw happen with the Broncos. There was a lot of infighting and just dynamics with the family that were ugly, and a lot of like a secret kid emerged at the funeral too. And it was just, it should be a documentary at some point or something. It was bizarre family stuff there with the Bolin. So hopefully you have a obvious transition in place. Obviously there's a lot of wealth involved with the NFL as well. And there's always the risk that, Falcons have not had, as you mentioned, they've been kind of the redheaded stepchild for the NFL for a bit. But it can get worse if your ownership group comes in and they use it as a money-making business, where that doesn't seem to be the case with Arthur Blank. He wants to win and is not involved to the extent that he is detrimental. So got to be careful for that. There's always a little bit of worries for that. I don't know the in-works or the dynamics of the family there for the Falcons. Hopefully somebody, if they do keep it in-house, hopefully it's one kid that is very much in charge and transitioning to them. And if they want to split the wealth or whatever, that's fine, but don't want to have too many cooks.
Good question in here. Jeremiah, he says, Jeremiah Kinlaw says, good morning, Scott and Nick. Coffee, I'm out now. I finished it. I'm flying high. If we don't get any legit starters at cornerback or safety in the draft or free agency, do you think Clark Phillips or DeMarco Hellams can hold down those spots? Personally, I like Phillips at slot corner. I'm with you. And no, I don't feel good about DeMarco Hellams and Richie Grant, and then Clark Phillips and Mike Hughes as my starting 5 for corners. I don't like that at all. I think something has to be done. So you feel good with Jesse Bates, you feel good with AJ Terrell, you feel good with Clark Phillips as 3 of the 5, but I'm with you. I want Clark Phillips at the nickel/slot corner. Now I need another safety. And if DeMarco Hellams wins the job, great, but I'm bringing in competition. And I need another corner. And if Mike Hughes wins, great, but I'm bringing in the competition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I am with you on that. There's still a lot of cornerbacks out there that you could bring, and I think it's pretty good. You can find some guys day 2 as well this cycle, so I'd be pretty surprised if he's there. And Mike, we have Terry Ocean saying Mike Hughes signed with Houston. He's not on the team. So watch out for them. And we got Nathan Floyd says Blank has 6 kids. So I don't know the inner workings of how the family dynamics work there, but hopefully not an issue for you guys later on.
And Eric says, is there any truth to the Drake Mays stock dropping? Do you take him at 8 if the order ends up being Williams, Daniels, McCarthy/May? We won't know until draft night. There's lots of rumors and innuendo and all that kind of stuff. But if you look at, and now that we're 40 minutes in, we probably should get to the mocks that we were talking about. Spoiler alert, Daniel Jeremiah and Mel Kiper both have the Falcons taking edge Dallas Turner at 8. And for Mel Kiper, he's got Dallas Turner number 9 overall on his board, and he says he's far and away the best pass rusher. And I like how Daniel Jeremiah puts it. The Falcons took care of their offense in free agency, most notably with the signing of quarterback Kirk Cousins. They still need to address their annual pass rush concern. Amen. It's not annual, it's lifelong. You have a flash here and there. You get a Jonathan Abraham. You get Vic Beasley going on a heater, but my God, this team, it's the Achilles heel of the Atlanta Falcons has been pass rush forever, for its existence. But you won't know if Drake May's stock is falling until draft night, until it actually falls. If you look at Daniel Jeremiah's mock, he's got Drake May going number 2. If you've got Mel Kiper's, he's got Drake May going number 3. So nobody with any skin in the game that wants to put their name on it that has a bigger name is moving Drake May below 5. Nobody. Not on their big boards, not on their mock drafts. Now, you might see a Chris Sims who throws something out there every year that's off the wall, and I don't know why.
Yeah.
Because it usually ends up being wrong.
Yep.
He's got a big enough name and a big enough platform that he doesn't need to do a hey, look at me move, but he does it every year, every single year. None of the main guys, Nick, have moved Drake May down at all, except to 3, as about as low as I've seen him.
And I just wanted to correct Terry Ocean Boy. I went back and checked. He mentioned that it was
Okudah.
With Houston, it was Jeffrey Okudah. Yep.
Yeah, Jeff Okudah signed. He's with Houston. So you got to find a replacement for Okudah, who played about half the games, but played well enough. And my thoughts on this, Terry, was he only signed for about $4.5 million. Falcons probably could have had him, would have been able to scrape together some nickels to beat that offer if they really wanted to, y'all. So tells me that they weren't really in the fight for Jeff Okudah.
Yep. They can find other options. Not a big deal. So we will see what they do at the cornerback and edge spot. They still need work to be done at those spots to really make a run this season still. But, the 8th overall pick, you got to take. I'd rather take the best guy that 10 years from now I look back as a Hall of Famer than fill a need in the short term and miss out on a better player. So draft is about the long-term need. So edge does line up for you guys here, but I wouldn't be so hell-bent that it's laser focused there for you guys at 8.
Yeah, right now it's hard. Again, you've got pick 4, 8, and 8, and there's not an edge I would have taken at 4, 8, and 8 in the last couple of drafts. My picks in those drafts were trade down, but I would have gone Justin Fields at number 4. Forever that would have worked out. I think he would have been better with Arthur Smith than he was in Chicago.
We'll see.
That could be a miss. Yeah. Well, we may not. Russell Wilson's a starter there, and he's on a 1-year deal. I would have gone Kyle Hamilton last year, and I would have gone 2 years ago for Drake May, and I would have gone Jalen Carter last year for Bijan Robinson. So I didn't get an edge either in what I'm looking at. This year, you're going to be hell-bent to talk me out of edge. It's going to be really tough because they are there. There are edges available. So Keith Cassidy, he says, let's get to the mock draft. I'm with that one. And Terry says, we got to take a DB at 8 to take the best cornerback safety off the board. We need tremendous help in the secondary. And Terry, I think you can get the number 1 safety in the second round, and you might use your 2/3 to do it. It makes so much sense to me to go wide receiver in the second round. But let's get to that mock draft. And as Marquise says, if only we had known what Micah was going to be, what Micah Parsons was going to be. Yeah. In a redraft, the lowest Micah Parsons goes is 2. And that draft was loaded. Loaded. That draft was loaded with players from Penny Sewell, perennial all-pro player, and he was my second pick behind Justin Fields, a quarterback. Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, Pat Surtain, Micah Parsons. That draft was loaded with players in that draft. And this draft looks pretty damn good, too. At 8, you should be able to get a player that should be a Pro Bowl player. So we're going to give Pro Football Focus. They've changed up their draft. They've added the People's Board back to it, which wasn't available on Monday. or last Wednesday or Friday whenever I did a draft whenever the hell that was. I did one on Friday and I used Pro Football Network, but it is available now. So I can look into the sunrise now and get a look at this. Let me zoom in. Zoom, zoom, zoom. Feel like a Mazda commercial. Zoom, zoom. Marquis says Richie Grant was the best safety a few years ago. Oh, well. No, they weren't. Unfortunately, the Falcons traded out of their number 2 pick. They traded down with the Denver Broncos, who came up and got running back Javonte Williams. They moved down and took Richie Grant, and I actually liked the pick from what I saw him at Senior Bowl. And then they got a 4th-round pick in return and turned that into Drew Dahlman, who actually turned out to be the better pick than Richie Grant. The pick that went the spot after the Falcons' original pick was Javon Holland, Miami Dolphins safety extraordinaire. Ouch. Ouch. So there you go. And and that's defunct on that one. That one hurt a little bit. So we've got the Falcons on the board. We're going to explore trade downs if I can keep it above 13, Nick.
Let's do it.
We will see. I think in this board the trade downs are actually fairly realistic. I want more than they're willing to offer on this. So y'all ready to get going? Let's hit enter draft. And we will start. So first 4 picks: Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels. See, they've changed this up, Nick.
Good.
Marvin Harrison and Rome Odunze over Marvin Harrison, who is not working out, who is not running a 40 for anybody in this draft cycle.
I guess at the request of the teams. Is what I've heard. Teams have actually said you don't need to do this. We're fine there. I think this might be more of a trend going forward, Scott, but big universities and schools have GPS data. And unfortunately, peons like us, maybe not you, I'll say peon like me, we don't get that GPS data, but the teams do have it. And some of them like that are starting to use it more than the standardized metrics and testing that we've had. Now, granted, you don't have decades of data to show what is valuable or not. Like you do for combine specific kind of data. But over time, we're probably going to start to trend more and more towards this GPS tracking data. And they have it for Harrison. And they're like, yep, that's good enough. We don't need you to run and pull a hammy.
So our question off the board was, what happens if Dallas Turner goes early? Well, here we go. If Dallas Turner goes early, then somebody has fallen. You can't throw 12 guys into 7 picks. I know recruiting fans always got on me for that. How'd you move this guy down? Well, this guy moved up. That means someone has to move down. That's how it works. So somebody is going to be available here. Mm-hmm. Marvin Harrison, J.J. McCarthy, Dallas Turner is gone. And we've talked about it, that you could absolutely go with Neighbors. If one of those guys falls, you could have wide receiver because you've got 2 more cheap years of Drake London. And Kyle Pitts, one more, his 5th-year option is still relatively cheap. So you've got this year and another one. So your cost control at wide receiver for a while, for a couple of years. In this window you are looking at, then you can decide, okay, do I need to spend second contract money on these guys? Do I have my quarterback for 2026, 2027, quarterback of the future? And Ryan Adonis says, can you save these? Yeah, I saved the ones that I like. And we go back and look, because I always say, I bet where I pick guys, they go higher than where I pick them when I get a D. I take Tanner Bortolini in the 6th round and I get an F for it. Yeah, let's see. Let's see how that plays out, PFF. But this is the scenario where you take Malik Neighbors at 8 and figure something out. You figure something out. I need an edge. Yeah, I need a corner. Someone asked, Terry Oceanboy, why 13? I said I wouldn't want to trade much farther down than 13 because that's where I feel like I can still get my that's where I feel there's kind of a line of teams that would be willing to trade up where I'm not trading too far back, where I'd just as soon have more 2nd-round picks, or I'd rather have 2 seconds instead of a 25 because I feel like they're the same guys at 35 to 45 that they are at 25. I'd rather have 2 of those guys than one guy at 25, if that makes sense. So, I'm okay on this. The chat seems to agree, but the trade offers. Thank you for reminding me, chat. The next pick at 12, they have made the offer. Who else has? 22. I'm not going all the way back to 22, but here's the problem with trading with Denver. They don't have a second round pick. And it's going to take me a second round pick to get me to move down or next year's number 1. And they don't like that. They won't do that trade.
What if you send back next year number 2?
That's too much for me. I don't want that deal.
Oh man.
Well, with the Broncos, you're right.
I was going to say, holy cow.
That could be a 60 pick swing.
God, I would be tripping over myself to get the Broncos number 1 pick in 2025. But
so this would be an option. Again, this deal could end up being a deal like the Chicago Bears made with the Panthers, but the Panthers gave them an extra number 1. So they got another number 1 in that. So I'm not making that trade. We're going to go with Neighbors. Draft a player. We're going to take Malik Neighbors for the reasons we have talked about, y'all. Is you could get wide receiver 1. I mean, he could be good enough to be the number 1 on this team. Drake London ends up being number 2. Well, my God, you're loaded. And I believe wide receivers that, historical data said it takes a little bit longer for wide receivers to come in and contribute. But that's changed. The rules have changed. The 7-on-7s year round have changed. The game has opened up. Cost control wide receivers are the new thing of the future for me, Nick. I hate second contract free agent wide receivers. I hate it.
The only way it makes sense to me is if you have a rookie contract quarterback where you can change the finances there and allocate some of that cost to help that rookie quarterback. So, yeah, a team with a high-paid quarterback like Kirk Cousins doesn't make a lot of sense for me there. So we're back on the board here. Your trade back is a must. Definitely had options there for trade back. Ryan Adonis says Nubin is the pick here for me. Nubin is interesting. Rudy doesn't like the offensive player at the first pick. I mean, teams.
I get it.
Yeah.
And this is the first one. This is the first one that I would back. Like, I didn't back the previous 3. They weren't my picks. The easiest one to justify. London was okay, but there were so many receivers that went there. Why couldn't you have moved back some in that draft? And then Bijan Robinson made sense last year for a guy trying to basically save his job.
Yeah. So we're on the board here for the Falcons. We already took a wide receiver, so there's some interesting ones available here. I'm curious if you want to talk maybe what's his name? Michael Penix there. Saw him available still. I don't know if you want to if you think he's a long-term option there, that's an option. Adisa Isaac tested really well. I think maybe it's a little early, but getting another athlete in there. Braden Fisk also had a good time, more interior defensive line. And then you also need safety. Nubin's pretty good. I mean, he's older and he didn't test explosive, but that's not always the most important for safety. But with the market the way it is for safety, do you want to use a early second round pick on the position?
I wouldn't mind it. It seems strange in this draft because of the strengths in other positions. But because I went wide receiver, and this is one of the reasons why I'm against wide receiver at 8, is because there's wide receivers in the second round that I love. And I'm probably not going back wide receiver in this draft. I mean, not after I just spent a bunch of money. And you know what? I'm going to turn Darnell Mooney into a $12 million wide receiver 5. I don't like it. I never see the corners here. Now, this board has Tyler Nubin ahead of Bullard. And I don't know if that's right or not. I don't know enough about him. But if I can get a guy graded in the first round at safety in the second round, I'm probably going here. And Penix doesn't make sense to me because, again, I'm trying to win now, and I've got holes in my team that I need to fill.
Yeah. Can we see the edges? Edges and cornerback.
Adisa Isaac.
Saw Adisa Isaac there. I saw Fisk is there as well. A little early on Nealand. Yeah, you had the drop off there at edge. That's one where maybe in the future.
One of the reasons why you don't want to pass on an edge, because if I can go back to 13 and get Latu and a couple more picks, I'm okay with that. I would be good with that. If you don't get your edge at 8, you're not getting him in this draft.
I like Ellis and Isaac, but they're not number 1s, number 2s. Can we see the cornerback spot as well?
Yeah, that was a good question coming in from Cedric. Who are the corners? I don't know the corners as well.
Really like Max Melton. Sandra still is a nickel back through and through. One of the
those
smartest
are third round guys.
They look like third round guys. Can you keep scrolling down? I'm curious if there's any. Bernardo Green, really liked him too. Okay, now one more question for you. Can you go to the actual draft and scroll up? I just want to see where Chop came off the board. Got Edger and There's Chris Braswell. That was one that would have been
me. I'm not a big fan of Chris Braswell.
Okay, I thought he tested pretty well. I don't like Braylon Trice. That's one that doesn't make sense for me.
I love Jackson Powers Johnson. I don't think he gets out of the first round. Darius Robinson, defensive lineman. Johnny Newton.
There's
Xavier Worthy ran his way into the Raiders. Latu falls all the way to 27. Chop goes at 26 to the Bucks.
See, I am calling there. I am on the phone starting at probably pick 20, 24, 23 and saying, hey, let me go up there and get one of those top 4 edge rushers. I have 3 day 2 picks. And if I could package 2 of those together, maybe even a 2025 round 4 pick or something to go up and get one of those top edge rushers, I consider it. So I think this is something, Scott, because of how these mock simulators go and how fast we run them, we don't really have many options to actually be the trade up team. But I think that for where this draft sets up at edge, it doesn't have to be 8 or bust because you have the picks in the pocket where you can be a little bit aggressive. And 25, 26, 27, that is not impossible to get up to from where you at right now. 43.
I agree. So if I could package some guys together and get up into the back end of the first and get Chop or Latu, I'm okay with that. After those guys,
it falls off.
I don't really care if it's 5th round, 7th round, or what. I'm looking at traits. But with these guys, if I can get my first round safety here in the 2nd round, I think that's what I got to do.
Yeah.
For this team, and I'm penciling in at starter. You've got a starting opportunity at safety. I'm getting a starter in the 2nd round. I can live with that.
Okay, let's go with Nubin. Little older player. I'm surprised he didn't come out last
year. In the 3rd, I'm targeting my corners that were there.
So you got your backup quarterback option again.
Yeah, I don't mind Rattler here. Like I said, we've said at the top, I don't mind a quarterback with one of these 2 3rd-round picks. We go almost back-to-back here.
Yep. You got I love Max Melton here.
I like Max Melton a lot too. Out of Rutgers, Senior Bowl guy.
Yep. Let's send that home. We need a cornerback. The edge rushers are kind of falling off a bit. We'll see what happens with the rest of the board.
You like Max or Andrew Phillips?
I think we've gone Phillips a lot. Let's go Melton this time. I think Melton's got a little bit more inside-outside of versatility. We're still on the board here. Phillips went off the board.
I don't mind going Spencer Rattler with the Calvin Ridley pick.
I think I might somebody that we haven't talked about so much on here. I saw the chat mention him though. Gabriel Murphy from UCLA. I think he tested pretty well at the combine. Overall, yeah, he's got decent size. Not decent size. Decent athleticism score. 39.5 vertical. 10 and 3-inch broad. 10-yard split of 1.6 seconds. Ross just under 9. Murphy makes a lot of sense for me as well. If you want to add a quality body to the room.
All right, let's target him with our next pick. I like Boygby, but he's a DL. He's 290 pounds.
Oh, I was talking about Gabriel Murphy, not they're brothers. I thought the other Murphy was still available. Maybe he went off the board. Or
what position was he?
He's also an edge rusher. Oh, Broncos took him. Darn it, I saw it. It's
okay. Oh yeah, there he was. I went right by him, and there goes Andrew Phillips.
That's who I thought was there. Okay,
never mind. I do not mind taking Rattler here. I really don't. I got a wide receiver. I got a corner. I got a safety. I still need an edge. I'm going to target. Who do we say edge? I'm going to go back up here a little bit. Hopefully I'm not making y'all.
Oh, you're making me sick, Scott. No,
I know.
Okay. That's my job.
Go back up. Again, there's
Kamara, Thomas.
This is why every time I do this, I start thinking I got to get my edge in the first. I have to get my edge in the first round. But again, a trade up is an option.
That's what I mean.
Package your 2 and your 3 together and maybe throw in a next year 3 or 4 and move back up to get Chop Robinson or Latu if they're still there in the 20s. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, and I think this is probably all fun exercises right now, but I think probably in the end it's going to be Turner at 8. But in this draft, we didn't have that choice. So let's go Rattler here. And
I like getting a quarterback of the future possibility with a 2nd pick.
Yep, I am with you all the way on that one. We're still looking at the board here. A lot of good running backs available.
Javon Baker's a good wide receiver. That's nice value.
I love Javon Baker. You got some good ones. Bo Limmer, you've been talking about adding a cornerback. Cade Stover is a really interesting option. You already took a safety, but Tyke Smith is there. I like Cam Hart at cornerback as well. Justin Igboibe, if you want to add a defensive line, like you mentioned earlier. I can't believe they listed him at edge. Maybe go Muhammad
he's
Kamara.
290 pounds. He's more defensive tackle. I like Christian Jones as a developmental guy on the offensive tackle spot. I think he's toolsy as far as the athleticism, reach, all that type of stuff. I think that's pretty good value in the 4th round.
Yeah, you have Muhammad Kamara, who tested well, but he's so small. But that's why you're talking about him being an option this late. Yeah, 4th round pick for you there. A lot of good running backs available.
My pick on here would be the tackle. I would probably go tackle on this and go Christian Jones.
Ben Sinnott still available too. Yeah, okay. I'm fine with you there.
Working him in and training him for right tackle. And see if I've got my answer, if I need to move on from Caleb McGarry after this year.
So Eric Hall, as an Iowa fan, let me tell you that I would be surprised if he's taken. The tape is good, but he's had so many injuries. I think there was talk of medical retiring from Michigan, back issues as well. I think that he is going to fall because of that. So I'm not sure if I'm super interested. You got Rosengarten.
There's the tackle I love. I think Roger Rosengarten's a cheat code on this.
They're a little low on him.
For my mid-round tackles, this is my guy this year. Roger Rosengarten. This is my guy this year. It was Spencer Brown 3 years ago. It was Abraham Lucas 2 years ago. I don't remember if I had one last year, but this is my guy for mid-rounds on this is Roger Rosengarten. If you can get him in the 3rd, 4th, I think he's a freaking steal.
Yeah. I'm not with you. Or I'm not against you there. Theo Johnson, I mean, that's the cheat code here. There's no way he's going to make it, unless he did something terrible, make it out of the top 100 picks. So, I mean, he's way too athletic, Scott.
I know. The testing on this, let me see if I can bring this up. RAS football for Theo Johnson and see if they put his numbers in yet. I know it was pretty close. They were almost updating them in real time. So he's got to be a 9.9. Theo Johnson, a search on this, and I'll share this screen. Lucky guess. Theo Johnson, RAS is relative athletic score, y'all, okay? And they take the numbers and they match them against, everybody that's ever tested. And Theo Johnson's RAS, hoping you can see this. They've got a lot of pop-ups on here. Theo Johnson's RAS is 9.98. That means he's as athletic as basically anybody that's ever played the game at tight end position. So 6'6" and an 1/8, 260 pounds, 4.57 with a shuttle of 4.19 and a 3-cone of 7.15, vertical jump of almost 40 inches. I'm taking Theo.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that's a good move there.
He's in the Kyle Pitts territory on that. His vertical is actually about 10 inches higher than Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts' vertical is only low 30s only. That only means he can double pump instead of triple pump windmill when he's dunking. So I'm going Theo on that. And Tristan and Solt comes in. What do we make the Vikings to avoid Roger Goodell hammering us? I don't know. We'll see on that one. Michael, this is kind of a who's who of football. How do you have enough guys to send scouts to all of these with Alabama, Ohio State, Texas, and USC as far as, getting the 4 big regions covered in football? I got West, Southeast, Midlands, and Midwest covered with these guys right here. I got to send people everywhere. Appreciate you, Michael, coming in with the super chat. I think it's Big Low Country, Falcons content provider, goes, that's a super chat. So thank you, Michael. Appreciate that. But yeah, if I didn't draft Theo, I'm going to take Theo here. It's just too good of a prospect to pass up. I know you signed Charlie Warner, but Charlie Warner is a journeyman. This guy is a freak. Again, 9.98 on the RAS. You're just looking for players that can go. Eric, is 103 his average draft position? Yeah, we're getting into that. Cody Schrader's kind of a hammer. I still don't want a running back in this draft. I like Marcus Harris on the DL. He is a little bit undersized for the interior, but quick. And what are we now? 6th round? I
That's
like him in
fine.
that spot.
Yeah, it's not a bad one. Steel Chambers stands out. Have you Ethan Driscoll, Zion Logue, if you're looking for a defensive tackle, like Javon Cohen as well. Those are all options. There's your guy Tanner Bortolini. He won't be that far down here, but if you want to do the cheat code, I'm not against it.
I'll probably go Marcus and then Tanner on
Okay.
these to finish it out. We were talking at the top about having another center to come in and push Drew Dahlman. Tanner Bortolini is a little bit different as far as Dahlman is better at the point of attack, and Bortolini is considerably more athletic, getting to second level, et cetera, et cetera. Speaking of sitting a guy for a year, let's make football his job for a year. Weight room with that athleticism, add 10 pounds of muscle. I like what I see. So I'm going to finish here with Marcus Harris. And then I'm going to come down here and get my center, Bortolini, at 197 and get slated for that pick by PFF. And I don't care. As Ryan said, can you save these? I will. So we ended up getting Malik Neighbors. I like the idea of packaging 2 of these picks, second, third, and moving back up to get your edge, whether it's going to be Chop Robinson or Latu Latu. Because, again, if you don't get one of those edges, you're not getting an edge. And you need an edge. Annual pass rush concern. Lifetime pass rush concern, Atlanta Falcons. I got a developmental tackle, which they don't like. I don't care. I've got a freak of a 6'6" tight end. Literally. Freak. 40-inch vertical leap. In the 5th round, yes, please. Marcus Harris, very good interior defensive line player in the 6th round, quick as a cat, good pass rush. And another hugely athletic center, record-setting combine center who showed very well. Check out his highlights, y'all. Anybody says, Tanner Bortolini isn't any good, check out his if you're watching this on YouTube, youtube.com/Scott Kennedy. I've got Tanner Bortolini on there in my Senior Bowl playlist. Watch him and tell me he can't hold up, because he can play. So I'd consider this a pretty good draft. I would still say, where the hell's your edge? Where's your pass rush, you moron? I know. Jeremy says, how come these boards never get graded 3 years after the fact? Well, we do. We do hit or miss, and try and keep an eye on that. But that's where I'm going. I'm going to post the full results and then this page afterwards, just so we can get a look at it. But yes, Rusty Moore says edge is way overrated. Nobody is stopping KC and Mahomes. Your best bet is to draft offense and try to outscore them. Or, again, the best. What did Cincinnati run when they I think they beat them? They were rushing 2 guys. They had 2 guys in coverage. They were running a 2-9. With the quick passing game, the edge isn't getting there anyway. So to a certain extent, I understand this perception, Rusty. When a guy's dropping back and hitting a first read right away anyway, edge doesn't really matter. I'd rather have fast linebackers. I'd rather have fast safeties and corners, because the edge isn't going to get to the quarterback, and he's not going to be able to turn around fast enough to make a play on the guy that they just threw behind him. So I get this to a certain extent, but draft good players. And it's not just Mahomes that you're trying to beat. It's Baker Mayfield. It's Derek Carr. And an edge makes a difference. And the Falcons have to get better pass rush. Chris says, don't let Nick talk you into a wide receiver at 8 with your next mock draft. It's a harder sell with Dallas Turner on the board for me. But Jared Verse, again, the pick might be Jared Verse at 8, even if Dallas Turner is there. Mm-hmm. I like the idea of moving back 3 to 4 spots and getting who's left of those guys as well. Let me see here. Tristan and Solt and Slot. I'm missing that in there somewhere. I need a space. He says, I'm actually a Vikings fan. Came here to mess with you a little bit. Kirk was playing crazy good last year before the injury. If he comes back the same, the Falcons can go a long way. Yeah, again, Tristan, the concerns, there's 3 big concerns with Kirk Cousins: age, injury, cost. Those were the three concerns. Cost is really off the board for me. He's got a $25 million cap hit this year and a $40 million cap hit next year, and then you can move on from his contract. Those aren't crippling numbers for a quarterback. They're just not. So cost is now off the table. Now your concerns are, can he play? Which is a concern when you're talking about a 36-year-old quarterback coming off an injury. Does he make your team better? If he's healthy, the answer is yes. The Falcons would be hard-pressed to get worse quarterback play than they had last year. Flat out. Period. End of. Does he make your team better? Yes, he does. He makes your team better. And that, to me, is a successful deal. Was it my first pick? No, it wasn't. It was probably, I think, fourth for me. But picks 1, 2, 3, and 4 all made the Falcons better. Kirk Cousins makes this team better. How much better? We'll see. We will see.
Yeah, I think a lot better. But we'll find out, and maybe we can work in a trade back at some point in one of the next upcoming mocks, Scott, just because at 8, I do think it'll be Dallas Turner for you guys. But what does it look like when you do trade back? And maybe we even run it slow and get a trade up in there as well. So froze for me for a second, but yeah, it's going to be interesting, and still another month until we get to the draft. So a lot of time to talk about it.
I think I may have frozen up. I'm watching my connection to StreamYard yo-yo
like
you're running the draft on there.
Okay.
Charlie Beagle says, now I've heard this draft isn't so great after maybe the first 20 picks. It depends on what you're looking at, Charlie. As far as the guys I really like at the top in the first round, and see, it says I've got a 1-dot connection to StreamYard again. To me, it's like 15 is right there. And from like 16 to 60, I feel pretty good about getting players. I think day 2 is awesome in this draft, Nick. I think day 2 is phenomenal in this draft.
Yeah, I think it is a good day 2. It does seem to really fall off the middle of the second round. So I'd say it's like more of a top 50, top 55 conversation rather than it is a top 20. So
JB 1521. I do like this idea. Again, if I can go back to 11, 12, 13 and get Verse or Dallas Turner, I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty happy.
Yeah, I would be. It would depend on what the package is, of course, as well. But I think Verse is really good, and he's definitely brings a different skill set than you have right now. Especially, it seems like Harrison's probably going to reduce inside to more of a 4-eye role. So makes a lot of sense to me if you did have a good package for him.
Jordan, we missed you. He says, no, I thought y'all weren't live. I never got a notification. Apologies. Sorry we missed you today, but it will be on demand. On that note, I think we are just about done. We're going to get out of here. I want to say thank you to our Super Chat superstars. Michael Sunrise Ronquillo coming in with the news. Evan J coming in as well. Edward Brown and Andrew Norman over on Facebook with stars. So thanks to each and every one of you. I will be back on Friday talking on these channels. We'll do some more Falcons podcast. Without Nick, I don't want to do a coast to coast by myself. I need Nick in order to do a national show. So we'll talk Falcons again on Friday. So, and again, we got a lot of Broncos fans that come in here. We had a Vikings fan to come in here. We welcome everybody. Be civil. I like different perspectives from teams. Love it. So appreciate y'all being here. Nick, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Yeah, we end up going wide receiver again. Sorry, Falcons fans. It just Malik Neighbors was too good there. I think if I could do this again, Scott, I'd tell you to pause every single pick and just follow the Latu chop board there, because you do have the ability to get up there with the picks that you have. So if you are really hell bent on getting an edge and the opportunity for Neighbors or Harrison is too good to pass up, then be aggressive and go get that edge. I think that's something to talk about.
You know what we can do is we'll do a first round only next time, and we will pause and we'll let it run until Chop or Latu comes off the board. And then we're making a trade for the other one.
I think that's the move. Unless, of course, the first 8 picks are all there and it's Joe Alt still available. Maybe you can flip with somebody to move back slightly.
Yeah, maybe we can come back some. They're all, this one, it was a good question, Nick. At the very top of the show, someone says, "What do you do if Dallas Turner is gone?" There's options. Somebody's going to fall. You might get a number 1 wide receiver. Okay, and as expensive as they are, okay, So, but the trade back up makes a lot of sense because I don't get an edge I like after the first round. I just don't when we're doing these simulations.
Yep. Yeah, I don't think so either. But who knows? That's right. We still got a month. We'll see what happens.
So we're going to get out of here. Terry, I think you had one question. He says, we got to take care of DB at 8. I'll take the best cornerback or safety off the board. We need tremendous help in the secondary. Yeah, we got a good corner in the 3rd and Max Melton, and we did take the top safety off the board. Whether or not he is the top safety, I don't know the safeties well enough, so I was just trusting the PFF rankings saying if I have a first-round safety at 43, I have no problem taking him there, despite the strengths of this draft. If I did all this and had a true top 200, my board might look different, but we know safety is a big need for this team. $3.2 million in savings if you move on from Richie Grant, or if you keep him and you're looking at Grant and DeMarco Helms. I don't want those to be my only options at safety next to Jesse Bates next year. So we're going to get out of here. Appreciate everybody for joining us. Thanks to our Super Chat superstars, keeping my forehead bright and shiny. Nick and I will be back tomorrow on Broncos for Breakfast, and we're probably going to talk draft and quarterbacks. That seems to be the topic of the week, of the month, of the first quarter.
Of the decade.
Of the year. Yeah. So if you want to join us, we'd love to have you. Otherwise, I will be back on Friday at 9 o'clock. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Peace.